Hi, guys. Welcome to the Chit Chat with Happy Jack podcast. I am your host, Jackie Wachter, and you might know me from Fount, but now I have started this podcast for funsies, and I am, in fact, having funsies. So tonight, I am going to talk about Fount. It is like my firstborn baby. I love it with my entire heart and soul. If you're not familiar with Fount, it is a leather goods brand that my husband and I started. So I'm going to give you a little bit of the history on why we started it, how we started it, and where we're hoping to take it in the future. So, are you ready? Let's go. All right, so back when my husband and I first started dating, my friend told me about this book called The Artist's Way. And I was kind of in this transitional time in my life and was reading this book, The Artist's Way. And the main premise of the book is that you go on these artist dates with yourself once a week. You take yourself to do some kind of creative things that you've been wanting to do. Like for me, that was doing yoga, starting to brew my own kombucha, gardening with my grandma, and then I started sewing again. I had gone to design school, but then became a kindergarten teacher for 6 years, and I started doing all these things, and I felt so alive. Like I just had all these hobbies, and these hobbies made me feel so alive. So anyway, during that season, I also started dating Philip, and when we were dating, the first Christmas we were together, like a month after we started dating, we decided to make all homemade Christmas gifts for each other. And in that process, he made me a really cool cutting board from some old barnwood he had. And he made me a pair of mittens out of an old jacket. And he had like sewn them from wool. It was really cute. And then I made him a laptop case and a pencil case that were out of this old wool that I had left over from design school. It was this beautiful Ralph Lauren camel hair wool. And it was part of like a dead stock collection that they had. So I made him this laptop case and this pencil case, and they were so cool and had these brass snaps, and he got them and he loved them. And he said, you know what, wouldn't this design be so cool if we made it out of leather? And I thought, wow, well, I've never sewn leather. I don't know how to sew leather. I've heard you need a special sewing machine. How do you do that? And I was in this kind of mode of creativity because of doing that book, The Artist's Way. So I highly recommend The Artist's Way. But I was in this sort of like figure it out mentality. Like if you want to try something new, just try it. So he and I, when he was visiting me in Cleveland from Virginia, decided we were going to go on a date that night. When we started talking about like, wouldn't this be cool out of leather, we Googled where can you buy leather, and we found a place in Lakewood, Ohio. It was like an old shoe cobbler, and they said that they, did a little bit of leather working there. And so we go, and they've got, different tools we'd never seen before. Awls, which is like a sewing tool, and all kinds of like hand tools. And they showed us how to use them. It was this really cute older couple, and they had some scraps that we could buy off of them. And we just couldn't believe it. We thought it was so cool. So we went back to my apartment and started making wallets, which is so funny. Like normal couples would go out on like dates to like restaurants and stuff, but like we just got on this crazy kick of making leather goods. So we just didn't stop for a few months, like making wallets, necklaces, all kinds of like little goods, And then within a few months, we'd been gifting them to friends and family as presents. And some friends and family started wanting to buy them. And then my friend's mom said, hey, I want you to design a bag for my daughter-in-law. And I just couldn't believe it. I was like, whoa, well, we've never designed a bag. Philip had tried to hand sew a whole bag, which was really cool. But we had never made a official bag, and I was really intimidated by it, and I came up with every excuse in the book why we shouldn't do it, because you needed to buy an industrial sewing machine, and I was like, oh, they're so expensive, we can't afford one. And my friend's mom said, well, I'll help you buy the sewing machine. And I was like, oh geez, well, now I'm really out of excuses. So we found one on Craigslist. I felt too guilty to have her help us buy the sewing machine, so we found a good deal on one on Craigslist. It was down past Amish country, and this guy says, hey, meet me at this gas station. So Philip and I meet this guy at a gas station, and he says, well, I'm going to take you to my barn, but it's really off the beaten path, so it might not, like, you might not have service there. And so we're like, kind of like wondering if this is legit or creepy or whatnot. So I remember dropping a pin to my dad, being like, hey, Dad, in case this is sketchy, this is the last place we were. Anyway, this guy takes us to his barn, like another 15 minutes down gravel roads. And sure enough, in his barn, in the very back of the barn, he's got this sewing machine under a tarp. And he had bought it. It was an old sewing machine from World War II. It was supposedly used to sew parachutes and like things like that during the war. I don't know about parachutes, but things during the war is what he told us. And the motor had burned out. So he replaced the motor with a lawnmower motor. And he shows us, how to use it. And we get it back to my apartment, plug it in, and guess what? It catches the wall on fire because it is so powerful. It was so strong. So anyways, that was kind of like our stepping into sewing leather. So we took that challenge of designing a bag for my friend Nikki, and we took it really seriously, and we came up with this really cute bag called the Nicole, which one day maybe we'll bring back. At that time, my friend Nikki was very bohemian, and so it's this kind of cool fringy bag that we designed for her. But Philip, being the classy man that he is, said, no, I think we need to design a bag that's for every woman. And he said, like, don't women love totes? And I was like, oh, yes, women love totes. They're just so practical. And I said, but every bag I've ever had, the straps have broken. The lining is gross. Because at that time I was a big thrift shopper. I'm still a big thrift shopper. But I loved vintage bags, but like the leather would be cracked or the straps would break, and like stuff was like, I just had never found a bag that was really super durable. And I, said, if we design bags, one of the goals I want to have is that I wanted to have indestructible straps. Like I want it to be unbreakable. So it's meant to last. At that time, I was also learning about fast fashion and about how bad it is for the environment, that we're buying all this stuff and then it lasts like maybe a season or two and then it breaks or it gets gross and ends up in the landfill, or, people are just cycling through their fashion so much that they're not hanging on to things. So that's sort of when we like started making these heritage style bags. They were sort of like an homage to old leather bags that were meant to last a lifetime. So from the very beginning of Fount, we really wanted to make something made to last, that was made from like super high quality materials and super high quality stitching techniques. So we started like on this mission to learn how to sew leather. Neither of us had sewn leather. I went to design school, like I said before, and Philip learned how to sew from his grandma. So he knew a little bit about sewing too, but we were both definitely learning on leather. So we watched a lot of YouTube videos, learned about machines, learned about techniques, invested all of our savings in these different machines that we were finding online, and just started to make bags. And conveniently, Philip, his background was in video production. At the time that I met him, he was doing video production, and I was doing personal styling on the side when I was a school teacher. So I'd always been really into like styling and making outfits, and just like, just loved it. So he would do the videos on Instagram and the photos and all of that, and I would find friends of mine to model and style their outfits. So we just had so much fun just kind of creating this brand. And a couple months into it, we started selling our bags at the Cleveland Flea. Rest in peace. It was this amazing flea market that like all the creatives of Cleveland and surrounding cities would sell their stuff once a month. It was awesome. But we started selling our bags there, and it was awesome. The first week we brought them, we had them marked. I can't remember what we had them at, but it wasn't the like awesome Italian leather it is now, mind you. But I think we had them at like $250 or $299, and we were just like, I don't think anyone's going to buy these for that price. It's so expensive, but they took us so long to make. So it's just like what we had to charge. And they all sold out. Like every single one sold out. And then it was just blew our minds. We're like, oh my gosh, we've got something here. So we just kept going, and we made more for the next month. And within 3 months, like God was so good to us, someone from Country Living magazine found our Instagram page. And this isn't 3 months from when we started working with leather. This is 3 months from when we got our LLC, had our website, like officially named our company, all those things. I'm going to get back to the name of the company later. But 3 months after we had our official website, Country Living Magazine found us and asked us if we could send 3 bags to them overnight because they're going to write this article on us called Making a Country Living. We cracked up because we're like, do they know we've sold like 7 so far? Or that at that time it was probably like 20, but we really had not been making a living. Definitely not. At that point, we were just like making them more for fun and as a hobby. And so they wrote this article about us, and it was awesome. Like the day that that article came out, I am not joking you. We had never had one single online order. Philip and I were out with friends, and his phone got this kind of like ping, and he's like, "Oh, look, our website got an order." And I'm like, "Oh, cool. Like, who's it from?" Like, I was thinking like maybe it's a family friend, or like, is it somebody we know? And it was from a different state. I think it was Iowa or something like that. He's like, "Do we know anyone in Iowa?" And I was like, "No, I don't. Do you?" And then another order comes in, and then another and another and another. And it went on for weeks and weeks and weeks like this. But like when we first got those couple orders, we're like, "Oh my gosh, maybe that magazine came out." So we rushed to Dave's Market here in Cleveland Heights. And lo and behold, the Country Living magazine was on the stand at the checkout there. We flip it open to the center fold. They did a 2-page spread on Philip and I making a country living. And from that, we got like our first big jump into like, whoa, this is real. Like we started something that people are excited about. Now, mind you, at that time, we were hand hammering every single bag. There were 510 holes. If you're familiar with our Belfield collection, there were 510 hand hammered holes in each bag. So it's maybe Philip, will you pass me a Fount bag so I can show people the stitching? But on the outside of the tabs, there are all the holes. And on the bag itself, you have to punch holes to sew through because you can't just punch the needle through the leather. I mean, you hypothetically could if you had a sharp needle, but when we hand sew, we use a doll needle to go through the pre-existing holes. And then there's interior weight-bearing pieces that are sewn inside to guarantee the strength of the strap. So it is very labor-intensive. So they were all 100% made by hand. So they were taking us, I think, 14 or 15 hours each to make. And it was going to take us a long time to fulfill these hundreds of orders that came in. So we had heard about this legendary thing called a clicker press. And essentially what a clicker press is it's a giant cookie cutter, 25-ton cookie cutter. And it presses down on these hard metal pieces called ruling, and it punches out the leather. So we look into it, and they're very expensive. So we found a used one, again, on Craigslist, and got it shipped to us from Michigan. And then the dies were the next piece of the puzzle. So I sent my pattern work to this place that someone, maybe at the Cleveland Fleet, told us about this place that did leather work in Amish country called Weaver. And so we sent our dies there, and it was honestly like they emailed back and said, "Hey, like, why do you want all these holes in this bag? Like, what is this design? I've never put holes this close together. I don't think we can do it. And if we could do it, it's going to be really expensive." And I said, "Well, we already sold a few hundred of them that we need to make. So let me know what it costs. Please try to figure it out. And email me back if you do." So the guy emails me back a few days later. Here, I'm going to borrow that from Philip's got the bag here. Thank you, dear. This is one of our original Fount bags, like the very, very, very first ones. And here is that hand stitching. So when you add up the holes there, and then the interior weight-bearing holes, and then all the holes in the bag, that's 510 holes per bag, which is wild. But in 9.5 years, we've never had one break. So they're super strong. But so the guy emails me back after a couple of days and says, "Hey, I figured it out, but it is going to be very expensive." And I said, "Whatever it is, it's okay. We've got the money in the bank because people already paid for these bags, and we got to make them right away." So he starts working on it. And I forgot an important detail. When I got off the phone with him, I prayed about it. I was like, "God, I don't know what to do because I have all these orders that came in. We have all these orders that came in and we don't know what to do, how to make all these bags on time. Please help us. Please say that this guy can do this. And that prayer was answered. So that was super cool. Then we also called Kent State to see if they had any recent graduates that would be able to come work for us. We called Virginia Marty to see if they had any graduates. And within the course of like 2 days, we went from it just being Philip and I to hiring a team of, we went to 7 or 9 of us right off the bat. It was wild. So we started making all these bags. A couple months, this was August, and we're making the bags, catching up on the orders, going through Christmas. We were like on cloud 9, this growing business, like so excited, fulfilling all these orders, the best that we can. And I always ask people when I give a talk like about the story of our brand, I say, how many bags do you think we sold that next January after Christmas was done? And I'll let you take a second to guess. 3. We sold 3, but we had a team of, I think it was 9 at that time. And we were just freaking out, to be honest. We were so scared. We're like, okay, we have all these employees that we love, and what are we going to do? Because we have no orders. So we knew we did well at the Cleveland Flea over the summer. And so we said, how can we find more markets like that? So I started asking around, Googling around, what are the biggest like craft fair shows in Ohio and surrounding cities. So we started going to 52 shows a year, selling our bags on the weekends. So we would work with our team during the week, sewing bags. Come Friday, we'd travel to different cities, or we'd do every show in Cleveland. Literally, if a woman was like, will you pop up in my driveway for my group of girlfriends? I'd be like, yeah, tell me when and where. Bring 10 of them. Let's do it. Let's sell some bags. I would pop up anywhere to try to sell some bags. And that was really how we grew our business at the beginning. And within 2 years, we had sold to all 50 states. But I will tell you, it was a lot of hustling. Sorry about the noise. My dog Coco is snoring over here. So it was a lot of hustling. And I prayed again. Said, God, I cannot withstand this, because at that time we had gotten pregnant with our first son, Scout, and had him, and it was just getting impossible to travel on the weekends with a newborn that regularly. So he did go to like shows with us his first like 8 months of his life. I'd put him in the carrier, sell bags, and it went on like that for a while. So, but then at some point I said like, wow, this is just getting too hard to work all week and then sell all weekend and have a newborn and travel with him. It was really crazy. So I said, God, can you just please help us like figure out how to take this to the next level without having to do all these shows? Lo and behold, we get this opportunity. We get an email from a group called the Magical Elves, and they wanted us to be on their show, Cleveland Hustles. And it was LeBron James show. I don't know if anyone remembers it. It was amazing. It was like a blessing from God. But they were trying to do like a Shark Tank kind of thing, where businesses would pitch, and then you'd compete against each other to win one of like 4 businesses. We're going to win the opportunity to open stores in a gentrifying neighborhood in Cleveland to help, build up this arts district. So we heard about it and we auditioned and we made it through the first round. And then we got asked to be on the show. And so then we started competing with these other businesses to, do these different challenges, like design a men's bag for LeBron in 48 hours and make 5 of them and sell all 5 of them at a pop-up. It was like really hard challenges. And then, I can't remember off the top of my head all of the challenges, but it was 8 episodes. And then the final challenge was that you were, once you were one of the top 4, then the final challenge was to get your storefront, your legit first storefront open. It was in some kind of crazy amount of time. It was in like 15 days or 2 weeks. I don't know. It was short. And so literally we opened and had this grand opening night where it was like cocktail attire. All these amazing people came. It was a blowout party. And, we didn't have like walls yet on one side of the store because of the build out. So it's like the joke, we like still didn't have a lock. So we were just like trying to figure it out to make it by the cutoff for the TV show. But it was amazing. I'm telling you what, like we never would have imagined in my wildest dreams. I would not have imagined that we could have had a storefront in a city the size of Cleveland, that like we'd have enough people coming often enough to buy bags. I also just didn't know how much people loved our bags at that time, that we would have this storefront that people would come and support, that we could pay all that rent. So we talked the neighborhood into super short-term lease, and we did the show because we wanted that national coverage on national TV with CNBC. And we were like, okay, this is the greatest opportunity for this national press. So we took the opportunity thinking like, who knows, this storefront might make us go bankrupt. But opening a storefront was the best thing that ever happened, because fast forward now, we've been 10 years in our business, and we've learned from research companies, the Cleveland Research Company, that 80% of luxury purchases are made in person, because people want to touch it and feel it and smell it and know the quality. And so hindsight, I feel like God was just really looking out for us, because the part of the show we really didn't want to do was open a storefront. And the best part of the show was that we opened a storefront. We also got all that national press, which we still have awesome customers that joined us back then. I guess it's like 7, 8 years ago now. And it just was this awesome opportunity. So it sounds like, okay, they're off to the races and, the sky's the limit now. And I wish that was the case, but businesses have ups and downs. So at that point, we are rolling with our company and growing, but it was super hard to grow. Our profit margins were still really rough. We weren't making much on the bags. So we were just learning about business and, how much it is to pay your overhead and all of these things. So fast forward, things are going great, and we're trying to launch as many styles as possible, but it's hard to keep up with orders. So we're figuring out inventory, and we're figuring out how to make the best bags possible, because we're still learning at that time. We're still learning, always learning. But then fast forward, COVID happened, and it's like we thought the whole world was ending, as did a lot of people. Everyone was scared. Everyone's on lockdown. Everyone's worried about their family and friends. So the last thing people need during COVID is a handbag, right? It's like if the whole world's ending, you don't need a new purse. So sadly, that was not a good season for our company. It was a really, really hard season. And we thought, wow, we've worked so many years for this company to grow, and we're just going to lose it all like that. And so we were just devastated and super stressed out, to be honest. Philip and I were the only ones allowed to be in the studio. So, Mother's Day was approaching, and we thought, we're going to whip out a batch of special edition colors, and we're going to get in there. And so he and I would go, we'd take all the kids with us, and we would, just work from the studio with our kids there, because school was obviously closed. And we just did our best to stay afloat during COVID. And during that time, we actually decided to move to partner manufacturing. COVID was just a really hard time where we lost a lot of our team members. And then after COVID, a lot of people didn't want to come back. And so it was just always hard for us to find enough sewers. And so at that time, we thought, well, maybe it's time for us to move to partner manufacturing. We know there's countries all over the world that really need jobs. And so we started learning about fair trade. We hired a fair trade consultant. She's amazing. If you ever need someone for fair trade, Karen Gibbs, By Hand Consulting, I recommend her to everyone. She really helped us learn how to check with different partner manufacturers to see if it's fair trade, and check your sourcing and check all of those things. So through Karen, we found our partner manufacturers, and that was a really hard chapter, because the first part of Fount was super fun, having everything here in Cleveland, but it was super hard because we were doing the designing, we were doing the manufacturing, and then we were doing the marketing, and then we were doing the selling, and then we were doing the retail and doing everything. And honestly, it was just so hard and very, very, very stressful and hard to grow. because anytime we tried to open a store, we'd have to, really grow our team. And that was really challenging to do because there's not a lot of sewers anymore in the United States. So anyway, so that's a little bit about like during COVID, we started transitioning into partner manufacturing, and it turned out to be such an incredible thing. And the jobs, one of the partner manufacturers is in the Dominican Republic, and Philip and I went on a trip there recently with the kids because we've just fallen in love with the DR because of our partners. And we went on a trip, and we fell in love with this waitress that was at the resort we were at, and she would be our waitress every night. We'd sit in her section at the buffet, and she loved our kids, and we just got to know her really well. Her name was Carolina, and like maybe our sixth night there, she was saying goodbye. She didn't speak much English, and she was giving the boys kisses on the cheek and like tearing up and crying that she had to say goodbye. And I said, "Oh, like, are you off tomorrow?" And she said, "Yeah, I'm going back home." And he said, "Well, where are you going home to?" And she said, "Well, I drive 4 hours here every, like she works 2 weeks straight, and then she goes home for 3 days, and then she comes back and works 2 weeks straight at this resort as a waitress." And it shook me so deep to the core that we live in a country where we don't, have to drive that far to work, but to live somewhere where you don't have opportunities for jobs that are close to your family, that you can be with your family every night when you go home is, it's just like super hard. So anyways, I feel super proud and excited about our partnership. Sorry, I didn't know I'd cry about this, in the DR, that we can work there in a place that they really do need jobs, and that there's super valuable jobs that people really care about. So we talk a lot about fair trade, and I'll probably talk more about that later. But that is a transition that happened in our business that ended up being a really awesome one. So moving on, now in 2024, we currently have 4 stores. So we've got Cleveland East Side, Cleveland West Side, and me of little faith that I think we could have 1 store in Cleveland, but we have 2 thriving stores in Cleveland, and we're always hunting for a spot that we can maybe have a 3rd one, maybe down towards Akron or something. So in the comments, if you've got an idea for me, let me know. But yeah, we just love the retail aspect, and I've just fallen in love with customer service. It's actually something that I've just been passionate about for a long time. I worked in anthropology for I think it was like 8 years, while I was a teacher, and then before then too. But I just love being with women and customers and helping them find something that they love and they feel so good in, and they feel like it's a purchase that they can love and cherish for years to come. So the retail aspect has been so fun for us, and it's just become one of my favorite parts. So we have the 2 Cleveland stores, we have Columbus, and then we have Lexington, Kentucky. And if you follow us on Instagram, we are opening Dallas this year, and there's another surprise store on the horizon, which I'm not going to say yet because we haven't announced it. But we just have fallen in love with that process of getting to help people pick their bag out in person, because our leather is naturally tanned, and every bag does look unique because they're different parts of the cowhide. A lot of bags, actually, I think it's 93% of the women's handbag industry is covered in paint or top coating, and that top coating is like it's a Pantone color, right? It's just like a paint. So every single bag will look the same, which, if you like that, that's great. But our bags are different. They develop patina, and you can see the character. And when women buy, and we have more men's products too, so we're getting more male customers. But when people buy our bags, they say that they just fall in love with it and almost have a relationship with their bag because they feel the love that's put into each bag. And a lot of the bags do have hand stitching on them. The tannery that we work with is a 5th generation, it's unheard of, tannery out of Italy, that they just really care about their process and how it affects the environment. There's actually a video of the guy who owns the tannery drinking from the hose after they purify the water, because they're so passionate about making sure that they're taking care of the earth with their process. So they're part of something called the Leather Working Group, which means that they're very ethical, and it's a byproduct of the meat industry. So they're fully mature cows. And leather just lasts forever, especially if you condition it. So that's another thing about our brand. If you come into our stores, we do complimentary conditioning because we really care about keeping your bags look in mint condition and giving them a spa day for your bag. So yeah, that's kind of like the growth trajectory we've been on. There's so much more to it. Oh, I wanted to tell you about the meaning of Fount. I'm going to close with that because it's so special to me. The word Fount means an abundant source of desirable quality. And I'll tell you how we got that word, but that meaning means a lot to us because we want our bags to be quality from the way that they're made in fair trade environments, the materials that we use, and how long your bags last. We actually offer complimentary repairs on your bags. Like if a stitch comes loose, you bring it in, we'll send it to the home office, our studio downtown Cleveland, and we have a team that repairs the bags because we don't want them to end up in the landfill. We want you to keep using them. And when you're done with them, sell them, put them back into circulation, right? They're meant to last a lifetime. So yeah. And so the word fount, it comes from a hymnal. There's this old hymnal and it says, "Come thou fount of every blessing." And we initially named our company when we first started, when we were dabbling with making wallets and things, it was called Sidecar Club. And it was really cute and hip. But we knew that wasn't the permanent name. We were just kind of brainstorming. We didn't feel set on it, but it was like a good placeholder so we can get our LLC and get the ball rolling, right? And we're actually at Christmas Eve service and it was beautiful. It was candlelit and there was this a cappella version of "Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing." And I'll never forget Philip, during the service, is on his phone Googling. And I'm like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "I'm looking up that word fount." And he looks it up and he reads the definition and he shows it to me on his phone. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's awesome." And then we found out that no one had the rights to it. And it just became this whole amazing thing on when we found our name. It felt so cool. And then if you want to hear that song, if you want to look it up, I highly recommend Sufjan Stevens. I think he spells his name Sufjan. Stevens has an amazing cover of it that he does on his Christmas album. So yeah, look it up. It's become just the essence of all the decisions we make in our business and what we want to be as we grow and evolve as a brand. We just want to be quality in every sense of the word. So you'll start to see that fountain throughout our brand. It's on our silk scarves. We have it painted in the stores. It's on our packaging and things. And you'll see it more and more as one of the heritage elements of our brand. So thanks for tuning in tonight. That's a little bit on the history of Fount, why we started it, why we love it, and where we want to see it grow in the future. And I appreciate you tuning in, and I'll catch you on the next episode. Check out my website, happyjackjack.com, and I'll see you next time.